With that, I'd like to welcome newly elected Senate President Chuck Morse. So congratulations, Senator, on the recent election.
Well, I'm going to bag the speech because I listened to the governor for the last half hour, and he certainly described where the state of New Hampshire is right now, and we've certainly been working together, putting our thoughts on where we want to see legislation go in this coming session. So I think more importantly, how the legislature is coming back is important to the whole picture of not only real estate, but everything else that's going on in New Hampshire, because I do see a bright light. And, whether it's 5 or 6 months away, New Hampshire is going to come out very strong. So I think the legislature starting to meet now is very important. So let me be clear of what the Senate's doing, because obviously on Wednesday we got sworn in. We started moving into our offices, and through the challenges of COVID, we're going a little slower there than I anticipated, but it'll be done this week. And as soon as this is done, I think you'll see announcements from the finance chair, which is Gary Daniels, that we're going to start meeting to review last year, because I think that's an important place to start. And then on the revenue side, which the House has already held meetings on, the Senate's going to start next week holding meetings on reviewing revenues, not only where we've been this year in New Hampshire, which has been very strong, but where we think we're going coming out of this, because I think that's going to kind of tell the story of what I believe, July on is going to look like in the state of New Hampshire. So it's important that they get going. Along with that, I've asked Senator Reagan, who's heading up the Capital Budget Committee, to start to look at ways that we can make it a lot safer to work in the State House and the LLB in order to have meetings. I don't believe you'll see the public at any meetings. I think whether it's Zoom or some other format will be how we operate as legislators. I know there's some that want to open it up, but I don't think I'm comfortable with that yet. And 24 senators attended the other day, and I think they respect the fact that my leadership will represent what they think should happen coming up. And we've certainly talked about it all fall, Republicans and Democrats. We believe that the legislature needs to get back to work and get in some kind of scenario where we actually meet. So in the state building, I think you'll see the Senate chamber be the finance chamber for the senators for the next couple of months. It seems easier to do, so we're going to let Ways and Means and Finance and Capital Budget operate out of there. And then room 100 and room 103 will be the two big rooms that we have in the Senate that we'll start to use for policy committees. I think policy committees will be a little slower to start to operate, at least in the Senate. And the House is facing similar challenges over in their building, but they're also talking about letting us use their chamber for our sessions, which works out perfect. I think you'll start to see Senate sessions coming up in February, where we come back and talk about just about everything the governor mentioned. And I would like to go over a few of those things, because Senator Bradley will be the leader on broadband. We've already discussed that. We've talked about the fact that the governor explained where the financial situation was coming out of the federal $1.2 billion that we got. We think we have to get that done. So we think it's going to take some efforts, not only from you guys, from businesses. You're going to see this relationship. It's going to, when I explain water, when I explain housing, broadband, the relationship between bringing business in, the community in, and the government being the backstop is going to be the way government should run, whether it's through broadband or housing or education. It just continues on. I think those are the way. New Hampshire people are used to doing that. And as the governor goes through challenging decisions, on COVID and everything, I think the New Hampshire people have had no problem calling the legislator, calling the governor, and talking out what's going to be best for New Hampshire. And that's what I think you're going to see happen. But anyways, Jeff's going to lead the way on broadband, just because we we do believe there needs to be relationships there with the business community, and we need to get the whole state done. This all popped up because of education, to be honest with you. It's not fair, you know, that someone in Coas County doesn't have the same opportunities that someone down in Rockingham County has. So we need to get that done. I think you'll see that priority come right away. But some of the other priorities, we don't know where the funding's going. We just know the models that have been used, you know, in the 2008 era, you know, our era funding, basically sent money to the states to do these one-time funding things. That's how we're going to treat it. So if the money comes in from the federal government at a rate that some of the other states are I don't want to say failing at, but they're, you know, their balance sheets don't look like New Hampshire, I can tell you that. So if we get paid, you know, for citizen to citizen, New Hampshire's going to have a lot of money to do a lot of good things. And, you know, as we talk about that, roads and bridges have always been something that, you know, we're good at in New Hampshire. And I think we strengthen that because the reality is our department's so good. When we made a mistake on 4A, the way we put it out, we got to get back and fix it. I mean, that exit ramp has to be built and we got to get it done. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have to be done everywhere in the state of New Hampshire, where we have a department that's extremely talented. Let's use them, but let's get the plans out, get them out to bid, and let's work with the industry in the state of New Hampshire when it comes to building bridges and roads. They know what's going on. Go to a NASCAR race with Continental Paving and, you know, just sit down and talk and trust me, it's not all great. I mean, they may want more tax money in roads, and I'll argue about that, but they certainly explain to me better ways that we can deliver the bids in New Hampshire so that we can get things moving. So I think that's what New Hampshire's all about, things like this. And I think you'll see as we go into the investments in roads and bridges, there'll be a lot of communications with the communities to figure out how to get things done. But that kind of money is coming to New Hampshire. I know the governor mentioned housing. We've been pretty strong on this. We've talked, you know, the state government cannot go down and tell local communities how to function. It's never going to work, and I don't believe in it, quite honestly. What we can do is say, we have this available, and you ought to consider it if you want to change your tax structure locally. You take a town like Salem, where 25 to 30% of the tax dollars are coming from businesses. Hey, it's a winning model. You know, where do people live that are old-time people in Salem? They all live on the outskirts because they found it, you know, we want the quiet part of Salem. You guys can take that on Route 28 to pay half our tax bill. You know, let's do it that way. And that's what they decided to do. But I think as other communities look at what the governor was talking about, they're going to have to make decisions, because I think opportunities in the next couple of years between building infrastructure projects are going to be out there. The communities that can least afford it are going to find out that the models are being devised for them. I mean, the communities like Manchester and Salem, look, they can borrow money, and they probably borrow money cheaper than they can get it from the state. Well, for sure they can. But the reality of that whole thing is there's other communities that can't get there. And these models that we've been testing, and as I go into water and talk about our theory, was triple the money. That was our theory. We wanted to be like LCHIP. We didn't think we could get anywhere near 7 times, but we are certainly working at the triple model. And as we talked about the Southern Tier model that the governor mentioned, coming down from Manchester to get over to Plastow, time to stop talking about that because it's in place and we're working through the little kinks that we have. But let's talk about Peterborough. I mean, they came in to our committee. They basically came up with a plan to team up with 2 or 3 towns around them to extend a pipeline on a $12 million project. And they had to make sure the source was working for all of them. That's going to happen. We've already approved it. They started over there, but Millipore is going to expand by 400 or 500 jobs over there because of the efforts of the community, seeing this is a huge benefit, how can we get it paid for? You know, the learning process over there was even for the state. There was a bond pulled over there for $3 million, give or take, and Millipore, over a 10-year period, agreed to pay that bond back for the community. Now, we didn't know that at the state level. We just knew that the model that came in to our committee was $12 million project. They needed to come up with $3 million more, which fit our model, and the 9 was coming out of the local communities. You know, the fact that they brought business in and did all these things, they used the state government to come into meetings to talk about this. Those are the kind of things that I think you're going to see happen with one-time money. I don't think, you know, we'll get more money into water. We still have quite a bit. We'll probably have a little bit over $100 million still sitting in that account. We have a model that we're trying to just use 20% of the corpus every year, but we'll see how that goes. If more money were to come in, we'd start to look at other things, but there's still 3 or 4 communities because of the way it's set up that if they face challenges with contamination, we would work with them to develop a model. When Peterborough and Jaffrey came in, we were on the cusp of putting this together. Obviously, their contamination was from 30 years ago. So we were looking at their model saying, boy, is there any way to tie into the federal money? And I do believe that'll be the future over there because the feds were involved over there originally. So I do think as they get the source done and they bring the pipe into the communities, they're going to be working with the federal government to solve all their local infrastructure problems with water. But I think that's where we're headed in total. When we start to step out to the North Country, there's a project up there. There's a project over in Windham that has PFOAs involved, where the schools are involved. The community just has not got on board yet with it. But as they start to solve their own problem and come back to us with a solution, the Department of Environmental Services is helping them develop that solution. The governor mentioned Portsmouth. You know, it was probably 4 years ago that I went over to Portsmouth and met with that group and said, this is what my model is going to look like. You know, call me when you need me. I think it's time, you know, because everything keeps coming in the news, and I think it's time for us to go in as a state and start to sit at the table and say, how can we solve these problems? You know, because there's the sources in one community for the rest of the communities, which is great, because then you can just protect that source, just like we're going to protect the Merrimack because of Manchester. We have a great opportunity here. Manchester is expanding up there with their water company, and we can protect that source and send more water everywhere, not just south. I think in the future, 101 is a great place to be looking at. But in any case, all these things are going to start to happen. I think the one-time money that's coming into New Hampshire will go into all these buckets. Wastewater, the governor can find another Chuck Morse. It's that big. I hear about it all the time, and I think you definitely need some kind of model to get the communities to work together, because that may be something that, I heard him speak about education and maybe schools combining. I mean, in Salem, we've always talked about fire departments combining with other towns. It never happened. But I think that is going to be something that communities talk about, but the success of the Southern Tier project on water is that all the communities talk to each other. They all had to sign a document that said, we agree in principle before they even had the principles. So it was pretty cool that they all communicated. I think as we go forward, that's going to be something that I think the whole state looks at, just as you look at the water projects, quite honestly. But we'll jump on that. I got off the housing project thing, but we certainly know that there's a lot of prepaid tax dollars out there for one reason or another. And if you look at the 50 large corporations, which none of us know who they are or how much they have prepaid in tax dollars, I think New Hampshire needs to look at that. And I got this from a story where I saw Dartmouth Hospital talking about investing over there. in the community to get housing because they needed so many more units to have people live in. So, you know, as we go forward here, I think we have to incentivize these businesses to work with us in the state of New Hampshire. So if we do get one-time money, New Hampshire may want to participate in order to use the money that's already sitting in our coffers but not being used yet because they don't owe the money in taxes. So maybe we incentivize them to use some of that money, match it with new money that's coming in New Hampshire, and then match it with local development money. It might be a great thought because the numbers are staggering, to be honest with you, on the dollars that could be involved there. So I think we'll have to look at it.
So Senator, we respect you have an obligation, and we just had, you know, one quick question. You talked a lot about the community wells from a municipality standpoint. So much of our time at the realtor level is talking about individual homeowners or commercial property owners and their individual wells, and also the community wells that are associated with that, small condominium associations, small housing projects. Is there any discussion in Concord relating to those wells and support of those property owners?
Yeah, we just dabbled in it. We put $1.5 million into it. The application process is up at DES. They're handling that right now. What we're looking for in a presentation in January on that is, say these drying up of wells, say it's happening in a neighborhood that's a mile away from a water source. Obviously, right now, the cheapest thing to do is to drill a deeper well and see if we can get more water. We're hearing well companies can't get that done quick enough. I mean, they're already booked out. So what we're looking to get back from DES in short fashion is what's the seriousness of the drought in New Hampshire, because that's part of this, and how can we come in as a state to expand systems that are out there in a fashion that may not meet the model of 25% state, but in the long run, it will. Because if you can run the pipeline with the agreement that, you know, Salem has this, if the pipeline goes by you, you pay the betterment when you hook up. So I think, and Manchester actually does it in a similar fashion with their model, that because when they sold water to the Southern Tier, there was, I think, an $11 million check involved to get everybody to pay for what was already put in the ground. So that we're starting on that. We've looked at it because of drought, but I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other reasons. We've had trailer parks come in several times to our committee already, and we've looked at building whole systems, not just coming in and solving one person's problem when it comes to that. So we're aware of it, and as there's issues that you think need to come to us, send them to the committee, because DES is, they're set up for this. They certainly watch this all the time. So.
Well, Senator, it was as if you did the perfect transition for me, because the DES is next on the agenda. So appreciate your time sharing that with us this morning, and thank you very much for your service. And again, congratulations on the election.
Thank you. Take care now.